lost everything they stole from me. Not because I fought them with fists, but because I rebuilt a life so solid, so powerful, they could never touch it again. My brother got the business. But I kept the loyalty. My father gave away the house. But I built a home with dignity. And Rachel? She vanished, just like the lies they built together. If you've ever been betrayed by the people closest to you, you're not alone. Drop a 1 in the comments if this hit home. Like, subscribe, and share if you're done being the quiet one. Let's build something real, together. You ever look at your own life and wonder, at what exact moment did everything fall apart? I do. It wasn't just one moment. It wasn't a car crash or a loud fight or some dramatic explosion like you see in movies. It was quieter than that. Slower. A kind of slow-motion collapse where you don't even realize the floor's disappearing beneath you until you're already in free fall. But if I had to pick one exact second where my world cracked in half, it would be the moment I heard her say the words, "Charles, I'm pregnant. And it might not be yours." Yeah. That's how this story starts. But don't worry, it doesn't end with me broken. Because what came next was the part they never saw coming. Let me back up for a second. My name's Charles Bennett. I'm 36 years old, born and raised in Cincinnati, Ohio. Middle America. Nothing flashy, just a working-class town with good people, bad weather, and a whole lot of pride. I'm the kind of guy who doesn't like drama. I keep my head down, do my work, show up for the people I care about. I'm not flashy. Not loud. Never needed to be. But somehow, life still found a way to rip me to pieces. It all started with family. Now, I know everyone says their family's a little dysfunctional. But mine? Ours was textbook favoritism. You could write a whole damn psychology thesis on it. I was the oldest son, the dependable one. The one who got straight A's, helped around the house, fixed things when they broke. My younger brother, Ryan, though, he was the golden child. Always was. He was the miracle baby. Born premature, had health issues early on, and ever since then, my parents, especially my dad, treated him like he was made of gold. No matter what Ryan did, no matter how many times he failed or screwed up, it was never his fault. It was just Ryan being Ryan. Meanwhile, I was expected to carry the weight. Be the example. Be the man. And I tried. God knows I tried. I started working in my father's electrical contracting business when I was 16. Not because I dreamed of being an electrician, but because it was the only way to earn my dad's approval. I figured if I worked hard enough, did everything right, maybe one day he'd look at me the way he looked at Ryan. Spoiler alert, he never did. But I stuck with it. I learned the trade inside and out. I brought in new clients. I streamlined our operations. I was the engine behind that business, even when no one gave me credit for it. And then came Rachel. She was the one bright spot in all this. I met her on a rewiring project at a commercial site downtown. She was the property manager, smart, confident, quick with a comeback and sharper than half the contractors on that site. We started talking. Then dating. Then building something together. She wasn't just my girlfriend, she became part of the business, part of my life. She believed in me in ways nobody else ever had. For a while, I really thought I had found my future. We got engaged after 4 years together. I thought I had it all, finally. But like I said, the cracks had already started. I just didn't see them yet. Because while I was out there grinding 12-hour days, planning a future, saving for a house and dreaming of a family, my brother Ryan was doing what he did best, taking whatever he wanted and never paying the price for it. And this time, what he wanted was Rachel. Yeah. You heard that right. My own brother, my blood, slept with my fiancée behind my back. And it wasn't just a one-time mistake or some stupid drunken slip. It was deliberate. Repeated. Secret. Cowardly. And when the truth came out, They didn't even bother to hide it. You'd think my father, after all the work I put in, after all the years I carried his business, would stand by me. But instead, he looked me in the eye and said, "They're starting a family now. It's time Ryan had some responsibility. I'm giving him the business, and helping them buy a house." Just like that. Like it was logical. Like I should understand. Like betrayal didn't count when it came from people with your last name. But here's what they didn't know. I wasn't the same man anymore. They thought I'd walk away quietly. That I'd just take the hit and disappear. They didn't know I had a plan of my own. They wanted to destroy everything I'd built. Fine. I'd let them. But I'd make damn sure they choked on the rubble. This is the story of how I took back my power. How I made them pay. Not with fists. Not with revenge fantasies. But with something far more devastating. Success. Silence. And strategy. And it all started with that one moment. One sentence. I'm pregnant. And it might not be yours. So buckle up, because this story gets darker, sharper, and messier from here. And by the end, you might start asking yourself the same question I did. What would you do if the people closest to you betrayed you the deepest? My father always said a man's value is measured by how hard he works and how well he provides.
Doesn't mean she has to ignore it.
At
The cabin moves
that's
on
what he
around
used to
her
say to me.
as if nothing happened.
What he actually
The
meant
businessman
was,
across
as
the
long as
aisle
you're not
barely
lying,
glances up,
those rules apply.
too focused on whatever deal
Growing
he's
up,
closing on
I
his
didn't
laptop.
understand
The
favoritism.
young couple a few rows
just
ahead
thought I
chat
needed to try
quietly,
harder.
oblivious
Be
of the moment.
quieter.
No one else
Be
has been
better.
asked about their seat.
I was the
No
firstborn,
one else has had
and
to
from
prove
as
they
early as I
belong.
can remember,
A flight
I was
attendant passes
expected to be
by,
the example.
offering champagne
The
to a white man in
responsible
an
one.
expensive suit.
The
Her
protector.
voice warm, professional,
Ryan
effortless.
came along 3 years
Then Karen
after me,
returns,
and everything changed.
standing over Amar once again.
He was born
Can
premature.
I get you something to
spent
drink?
his first few years in
The
and out
words
of
are polite,
hospitals.
but the way she says
I remember
them
those
isn't.
nights in the
Her
waiting
tone
room,
is flat.
curled up on hard
The warmth
plastic
she showed
chairs
the
while my
others
parents
noticeably
hovered over his
absent.
crib in the
Amara
ICU.
lets a beat of silence
And I
stretch
get it.
between them
I really do.
before answering.
Having a sick baby
Water,
changes
please.
people.
Karen
But
doesn't
even
nod,
after he got better,
doesn't
they
acknowledge
never
the
stopped
request.
treating him like
She
glass.
simply turns and walks away.
Every mistake
And
Ryan
Amara
made was
watches
brushed
her
off.
go, tapping
He's been
one
through so
perfectly
much.
manicured nail
Charles,
against the
cut him some
armrest.
slack.
She's dealt with people
He
like
needs time
Karen
to
before.
adjust.
But Karen?
He's sensitive.
Karen has no idea who
Meanwhile,
she's just played
I wasn't
with.
allowed to stumble.
Amara leans back in her seat,
My report cards
watching
had to
as
be
Karen moves
spotless.
seamlessly to the cabin,
My tone respectful.
offering drinks with warm
My
smiles
schedule
and
full of
effortless charm.
chores, tutoring,
To everyone
and
but
eventually
her.
work shifts.
She serves the businessman
While
across
Ryan
the
got
aisle
out of
first,
mowing the lawn because
setting
of
down a
allergies,
fresh
I
glass
was
of
up at 6
champagne
a.m.
with
every
polished
Saturday
ease that
cleaning
suggests
gutters
years
and
of
patching
catering to the
drywall.
privileged. Here
When
you
I got
go,
detention
sir.
in ninth grade
Enjoy.
for showing up late to
The
class
older
once,
man barely
just
acknowledges
once,
her,
I was grounded
too
for a
engrossed in
week.
his laptop to
The
notice the
same
subtle
month, Ryan
change
got
in her
caught
demeanor.
sneaking out of the house
Karen
with his
moves
idiot
on,
friends,
approaching
reeking
the
of cheap
honeymooners,
beer, and
seated
all
a
he got
few
was a
rows
heart-to-heart
ahead.
in the living room.
Mia, a
They made
bright-eyed woman in
excuses
a
for him
white
so
sundress,
often. I think they
beams up
forgot
at
he
the
even
attendant.
had flaws.
Could I have orange juice,
And
please?
I kept telling myself,
Of course.
one day Dad will see
Karen
the difference.
says, her voice light,
One day,
friendly.
when Ryan
She
runs out of
turns to
second
Jordan,
chances
who
and I'm
rests an
still
arm
standing,
around Mia's
it'll all
shoulders.
even out.
And for you, sir,
But that day never
I'll
came.
take a ginger ale.
I started
he
working for
replies.
my dad when I was
Karen
16.
nods, handing them their
The
drinks
business
with
was
practiced
small,
ease.
mostly residential
Even
electrical
pausing to
work,
exchange a
some
few
light commercial
pleasantries
gigs here
about
and
their
there.
destination.
I
Then,
didn't
without
love
missing
it
a
at
beat,
first, but it
she
felt like
continues
the
down
only
the road,
path available.
serving each
Dad
passenger
was
in
old
turn,
school, ran everything
ensuring
with paper
everyone is seen,
invoices and a flip
acknowledged,
phone.
and accommodated.
No website,
Everyone except
no
Amara.
CRM,
Minutes
no scheduling
pass.
software.
The businessman across
He
the
relied
aisle
on his name
already
and a
has a
few
second
handshake
glass of
deals with
champagne.
contractors around
The
town.
honeymooners have been offered
I
snacks
figured
to
if
go
I
with
showed
their
him I was
drinks.
serious,
But
maybe he'd
Amara's
start
water?
treating me like
Nowhere
something
in
more than
sight.
background noise.
She presses the call button.
So I dug
The
in.
soft ding cutting through
I
the
watched
ambient hum of
everything
the
he
cabin.
did, stayed
Karen
late after
returns,
jobs to learn the
her
technical
expression
stuff,
carefully
read
neutral.
manuals, took online
Yes.
courses, started
Amara
picking
meets
up
her gaze,
certifications he
voice
never
calm.
bothered getting himself.
I asked for water earlier.
I'd spend weekends
Karen's lips
experimenting
pressed
with
together
smart
in a
home
tight
wiring,
line.
looking
Her
into
fingers curling
energy-efficient
around the
upgrades,
tray she's
learning
holding.
about scalable
We're still getting
commercial
everything
systems.
sorted. She
I
replies,
saw potential,
her tone
ways
clipped.
to grow the business,
Amara's
modernize
eyes
it,
flicked to the tray,
maybe even franchise
nearly
it one
empty
day.
now. Just a few
And slowly,
scattered glasses
things
left.
started to change.
You seem to have everything
Clients
for
began
everyone
to
else.
notice.
For a
We were
split
getting
second,
better jobs,
something
more consistent
flashes in
leads.
Karen's expression. A
I
flicker of
convinced Dad
annoyance,
to finally let
of
me
something
build a
more
basic
raw beneath the
website,
surface.
then revamped our
Then
quoting
just as
system.
quickly, she schools
Rachel
her features
eventually
back
came
into
in and
control.
helped me overhaul
I'll get
the
when I
entire
can,
back end, automated
says,
scheduling,
before
digital
turning and
contracts,
walking away
real
without
invoicing.
another word. David
For the
Sloan,
first time,
the
I felt
businessman,
like I was
pauses
building
his
something
typing.
real.
He's been trained to tune
Something
out
mine.
distractions,
But
to
even
stay
then,
focused on work
when things
even in the
went
middle
well,
of long
it
haul
somehow
flights.
circled back to
But
Ryan.
something about the exchange
I'd land a
pulls
new
his
account
attention.
after months of
He's
chasing
flown
it,
first
and
class
Dad
for
would
years,
say, well,
familiar
Ryan's
with the
charm
way
on the
service
phone
flows,
probably helped close the
effortless,
deal.
uninterrupted.
Ryan's
He's
charm?
never had to ask
He
twice for a
picked up the
drink.
phone twice
The
that
thought
month and
lingers,
forgot
but
to
he doesn't
forward a
dwell on
message.
it. Instead,
It was always like
he
that.
adjusts his cufflink,
Credit
clears his
misdirected.
throat, and goes back to his
Success
laptop.
diluted.
Mia, on the
I
other
never
hand,
complained out loud,
doesn't let it go
but
so
inside,
easily. She
it wore me
nudges
down.
Jordan, whispering,
Ryan,
"Did you see
for
that?"
his part, had no
Jordan
direction,
glances
no
back.
consistency,
See
no
what?
grit.
She
He
completely
floated from
ignored
one
her.
failed attempt to
Jordan
another
frowned
like a leaf in
slightly,
the wind.
looking over his shoulder.
He tried
He
community
hadn't been
college,
paying attention
dropped
before,
out halfway
but
through
now
his
that
second
Mia
semester.
mentions it, the interaction
Said the
does
workload
feel
was too much
off.
pressure.
Maybe it was just a
Tried his
mistake.
hand at selling
Mia
dropship
shakes
junk
her head.
online, burned
No,
through a few
she
$1,000s
skipped her
of
on
Dad's
purpose.
money and called it a learning
Jordan
experience.
exhales, leaning back in
Next
his
came
seat.
crypto trading.
What are we supposed to do about
He
it?
got obsessed.
Mia doesn't
started
answer
reading
right
Reddit
away.
forums like
Instead,
scripture.
she looks toward
He begged
Amara,
Dad for
who
another
sits
loan to
composed,
invest in
unmoved,
digital assets.
as if the entire
Swore he was
moment
going
meant
to
nothing.
retire by 30.
But Mia can feel it.
Within 6
An
weeks,
undercurrent
the
of
money was
tension,
gone, and he
quiet
blamed the
but
market.
sharp. And now that
He
she's
always
seen
had a
it,
reason,
she
always
can't
a story.
unsee it. The dinner service
no matter
begins,
how
and Karen moves with
spectacularly
the
he
same
failed,
effortless
there were no
charm she had perfected
consequences.
over the years.
Not from my
With a trained
parents.
smile,
Not
she
from
stops
anyone.
beside David Sloan's seat
Me?
and leans slightly
I was the
toward
one
him.
getting pulled
"We
into
have
side
2 options for
conversations
dinner
about
tonight,"
supporting your
she
brother and
announces,
remembering
her
that
tone
family
warm,
comes first.
inviting. Grilled
Family
salmon
came
with
first.
vegetables or pasta
But
with a
apparently
creamy
only
sauce.
if you were Ryan.
Which would you prefer?
Still, I
David
stayed.
doesn't even glance up from his
Not
laptop.
because I wanted to,
"Salmon,"
but because
he
I
says,
believed that if
distracted,
I just kept showing
already
up,
reaching for
kept
the glass
doing
of
the
wine
work,
beside him.
eventually I'd get
"Excellent
what I deserved.
choice," Karen
Maybe
replies,
even get the business
setting a
handed
steaming
over
plate in
officially
front of him
one
with
day.
practiced ease.
I
She
imagine
moves
buying
down
my
the
own
road,
house,
repeating
marrying
the
Rachel,
same line
having
for
kids,
each passenger,
passing the business down
accommodating
like
their
a legacy.
preferences without hesitation.
And that's the
Then
part
she
that
reaches
hurts the
Amara.
most,
For
looking
the first
back.
time, Karen hesitates.
Because I didn't just lose my
The pleasant
fiancée.
expression on her face dims.
I didn't just lose
her
my
eyes
future.
narrowing just slightly
I
before
lost
she
the thing
speaks.
I gave most of my
"We
life
have 2
to.
options tonight,"
And the
she
worst
says,
part?
her voice
I
devoid
didn't
of the
see it
warmth she had
coming.
moments ago.
Not because
Grilled
the
salmon
signs
with
weren't
vegetables
there,
or
but because I
pasta
was too damn
with a
loyal to
creamy
look for
sauce.
them.
Amara
And they were
meets her
counting on
gaze
that.
steadily. "I'll have
Every
the
single
salmon."
one of them.
Karen's
She
fingers
came into
tighten
my
around
life on
the
a
tray.
job site,
"We're
of
out
all
of salmon."
places.
A pause.
One of those endless summer
long,
days when the heat
heavy
bakes the
pause.
concrete and your shirt
Amara's
clings to
eyes
your
flick
back
briefly
before
to
noon.
David's plate,
I was
where he's
rewiring
already
units
cutting
at
into
a
a
luxury
perfect
apartment
portion of
complex
salmon.
downtown.
Steam
Nothing
still
too complex,
rising from the
but
fresh
a big
meal.
job,
She
steady
glances
work.
toward the young couple in
I
front of her.
just finished running
Mia's
a panel
plate.
when I saw her
2.
arguing with
Whole
one of
salmon.
the HVAC guys.
The golden crust
clipboard in
glistening
hand,
under the
voice
cabin
sharp
lights.
and unapologetic.
She looks back at Karen.
She wasn't
Karen
just
doesn't
pointing
flinch.
fingers.
The
She was
moment
quoting
stretches,
code numbers,
tense and
calling out
silent.
installation
Amara
errors
doesn't
like
need to
she'd
ask
been born
why.
with blueprints
She
in her
already
veins.
knows. Then
That
finally,
was the first time I
she tilts
noticed
her
her,
head slightly
confident,
and says,
focused,
"Then I'll have the
completely in
pasta."
control.
Karen sets the plate
Not
down
like the
with just a
usual
little too
property
much
managers
force.
who just wanted
The
things cheap
silverware
and
rattles.
fast.
"Enjoy,"
She was
she
different.
mutters before turning sharply
Later,
and walking
I learned
away.
her name was Rachel.
Amara inhales slowly.
She'd grown
She
up
doesn't
around
move,
construction.
doesn't
her dad
reach
was
for
a
a fork
general
right
contractor,
away.
and it showed.
Instead, she lets
She
the moment
actually
settle
cared
around
about the
her,
work, wanted
lets
things
herself
done
fully
right,
absorb
not
the
just
weight of
done.
it. Her fingers
At
curl
first, it
slightly
was just
against the
casual
armrest.
banter.
It's not the
She'd
first
swing by
time
the
she's
job
dealt with
site to
something
check
like this.
progress,
It
ask
won't be
questions,
the last.
joke around a little. I started timing my breaks to match her walkthroughs. It wasn't long before we were grabbing lunch together, talking more about life than circuits. There was something easy about her. No games, no ego, just real conversation. She laughed at my dry humor, asked questions about my projects, listened like she actually cared. I didn't realize how rare that was until I had it.
What surprised me even more was how quickly she became part of the business. Most people keep work and relationships separate, but not us. She started helping out behind the scenes, organizing files, streamlining appointment scheduling, fixing the clunky systems Dad refused to upgrade. At first, Dad resisted, so we didn't need to overcomplicate things with software, but even he had to admit the business ran smoother with her in the mix. Rachel wasn't just efficient. She was sharp, detail-oriented, and didn't take shortcuts. She helped us move from handwritten quotes to digital contracts, cleaned up our invoicing system, system and got us tracking expenses properly for the first time in years. With her by my side, it felt like we were building something bigger than just a business. It felt like a partnership, a future, I'd never experienced that before. Real teamwork with someone who wasn't just invested in me, but in the dream we were creating together. 2 years into the relationship, we moved in together. It felt natural, like the next step in a rhythm we'd already been living. I'd come home from a job site. She'd be cooking or reviewing spreadsheets at the kitchen table, talking to vendors or helping me study for my master electrician exam. She even joked about taking the test herself, just so we could hang the licenses side by side on the office wall. We started talking seriously about marriage, kids, the life we wanted, not just in abstract terms, but in real, tangible ways. What neighborhood we'd raise our kids in, whether we'd send them to public or private school, how we'd expand the business into more commercial contracts. She made it easy to believe we were building a legacy. I proposed after we wrapped a major project, a hospital upgrade that we both poured ourselves into for weeks. Nothing fancy, just a quiet night at home with pizza and her favorite show playing in the background. She said yes with tears in her eyes, and I remember thinking, this is it. This is the kind of life people dream about. My parents even seemed to like her at first. Mom invited her over for dinner. Dad respected her input on the business. And for a while, everything felt aligned. We were getting bigger jobs, building our reputation, and Rachel became the face of our office. Charming clients, managing admin, keeping everything running smooth while I handled the field work. She was part of every decision, every plan. We talked about opening a second location. She wanted to buy a small lot and build a house from scratch, one we designed together. It wasn't just a relationship, it was a vision, and I believed in it with everything I had. I believed in her. I believed in us. But the thing about believing too deeply in someone is that it blinds you. You stop questioning little things. You stop looking too closely. You give trust too freely. And sometimes, by the time you realize you were holding a ticking time bomb, it's already too late. It started small. So small I almost didn't notice. At first, it was just the way Rachel started spending more time at my parents' place, supposedly helping Mom with wedding planning or training Ryan on the office systems. I was usually out on job sites anyway, and it made sense she was the only one who understood how the back end worked. But then it became more frequent. Late nights at the office, calls she didn't want to answer in front of me, quick glances at her phone, followed by her tucking it away a little too fast. She'd changed her lock screen password, said her banking app needed stronger security. I didn't think much of it. We trusted each other. We always had. But then there were the other things. She stopped talking about the wedding, stopped showing me houses she liked. The excitement we used to share, planning our future, it faded quietly, like a song turning down until you didn't even notice the silence. And Ryan, he was different too. He started dressing better, showing up to work on time for the first time in his life. He wore cologne, got a new haircut, even started staying late at the office. Said he was finally serious about learning the business. I wanted to believe it. I really did. Maybe he was finally growing up. Maybe all that pressure I'd carried for years was starting to shift a little. But deep down, something didn't sit right. The day it all unraveled started like any other. I came home from a job early. Our supplier had delivered the raw materials, and we couldn't continue until a replacement arrived. The house was quiet when I walked in. Rachel wasn't home yet. I went to grab a beer from the fridge, and that's when I saw it. Her phone, lying on the counter, screen still lit. I didn't mean to look. I didn't go looking for anything. But the message was already there, glowing like a neon sign that would change my life forever. Can't stop thinking about last night. You always know how to drive me crazy. Same time tomorrow. A little heart emoji followed at the end. My breath caught. My entire body went cold. For a few seconds, I stared at it, waiting for my brain to tell me I was reading it wrong, that it was a joke, that it was one of her girlfriends being funny. But then I saw the sender's name. Just a single letter. R. My stomach twisted. I opened the thread. My fingers moved without permission, driven by instinct, dread, and something deep in my gut that already knew. There were dozens of messages. Photos. Conversations. Voice notes. It wasn't just flirty banter. It was a full-blown affair. Dates, meetups, private jokes. Some of the messages were from weeks ago. others from just yesterday. The most recent photo hit me like a hammer. Rachel, smiling, lying in what I recognized immediately as my brother's bed. I felt the blood drain from my face. I backed away from the counter, like I'd touched fire. I wanted to scream, to throw the phone, to break something, but I didn't. I just stood there, completely still, staring at the wreckage of everything I thought I knew.
I don't know how long I stood there before I moved. I remember pacing. I remember my chest tightening like there was a steel band wrapped around it. I sat on the couch, then got back up. My mind was racing in every direction, running through every moment, every conversation, every excuse I'd ignored. I thought about the night she told me she was too tired to come to the job site. I thought about the way Ryan laughed too loudly when she was around, like they shared some inside joke I wasn't part of. I thought about every time I'd brushed off a gut feeling because I didn't want to be that guy, the jealous, controlling one. But I wasn't crazy. I wasn't insecure. I was right. And that realization hit harder than anything else. I'd spent so long trying to be the man she could trust, the man who gave her space and support and partnership, and this was what I got in return. My brother. Of all people, it had to be Ryan. The one person I'd spent my entire life protecting, defending, cleaning up after. The one person who should have known better. The betrayal wasn't just hers, it was his too. Maybe worse. Because he knew. He knew what she meant to me. He saw every plan we made, every step we took forward, and still chose to steal what he never earned. My heart wasn't just broken, it was crushed, twisted into something unrecognizable. But I wasn't going to fall apart. Not yet. Not in front of them. I needed answers. I needed the truth straight from her mouth. And I knew exactly how I was going to get it. When she came home that evening, I was already sitting at the kitchen table, silent, still, staring at the phone screen like it was some kind of cursed artifact. She walked in, keys jangling, a grocery bag in one hand, humming softly like it was just another ordinary day. For a moment, I watched her move, watched her smile fade as she saw my expression. The air in the room shifted. Heaviness settled. She knew. Charles? Her voice was soft, uncertain. I didn't respond. Just slid her phone across the table toward her. She didn't even pick it up. She just stared at it for a few seconds, then slowly pulled out the chair across from me and sat down. I was going to tell you, she whispered. When? My voice was flat. Empty. After the wedding? After the baby was born? Her lips trembled, and for a moment, I thought maybe she'd try to lie, try to spin some excuse, but then she broke. I'm pregnant, she said. The words didn't land the way I expected. For half a second, I felt something in my chest, something old and buried, a flicker of hope, maybe. But then she added, and it might not be yours. The silence that followed could have swallowed the whole house. I didn't move. Didn't speak. My body felt disconnected from my brain, like my limbs belonged to someone else. How long? I asked quietly. 3, maybe 4 months, she said. I didn't mean for it to happen, Charles, I swear. It just happened. I stared at her. With Ryan? She nodded, eyes filled with tears now. It was only supposed to be one time, she added quickly, like that made it better. But it wasn't. Was it? More silence. That was all the answer I needed. I walked out without another word. My hands were shaking, throat tight, vision blurry, but I didn't cry. I couldn't. It was like my body had locked the pain away just to keep me upright. I got in my truck and drove without thinking, hands gripping the wheel like it was the only thing anchoring me to the world. I didn't know where I was going until I pulled into my parents' driveway. It was instinct. The kind of place you go when everything falls apart, except this wasn't a refuge anymore. This was ground zero. I walked into the house without knocking. My mother gasped when she saw me, tried to ask what was wrong, but I brushed past her and headed straight for the office. Ryan was there, lounging in the chair like he owned the place, tapping on his phone with that same smug grin I'd seen 1,000 times. That grin disappeared the moment he saw my face. "Charles, man," he started, but I didn't let him finish. I grabbed him by the collar and slammed him against the wall so hard a picture frame fell and shattered on the floor. "You slept with my fiancée," I said, voice low, dangerous. His hands went up in defense. "Listen, it's not what you think," I punched him. Hard. His head snapped back, nose already bleeding. My father came rushing in, shouting, grabbing my arm, trying to pull me off. "What the hell is going on?" he barked. I stepped back, breathing hard, fists clenched so tight my knuckles were white. Ryan crumpled in the corner, holding his face, whining like a kicked dog. "Ask your precious son," I said bitterly. "Ask him what he's been doing while I've been out there breaking my back for this business." My father looked from me to Ryan, eyes narrowing. "Tell him, Ryan," I snapped. "Tell him who got Rachel pregnant." That was the first time I saw genuine fear on Ryan's face. He looked at our dad, then back at me. It just happened," he muttered. "We didn't plan it." "She's having my brother's baby," I said to my father, voice cracking from the weight of it. "That's what you raised." For a moment, there was silence. Just heavy breathing and broken glass underfoot. Then, unbelievably, my father turned to me, not Ryan, not the one who betrayed everything, and said, "Well, they're starting a family now. Maybe it's time we talked about what's best for the business." I stared at him, stunned. "What the hell are you saying?" Ryan showed interest, he continued. "With Rachel running the office and Ryan stepping up in the field, maybe it's time for them to take on more responsibility. Maybe it's time he took over." "Took over?" I laughed, bitter and disbelieving. "You want me to train the man who destroyed my life? You're giving him the business?" "I'm not giving it away," he said defensively. "I'm securing its future. You don't have to make this harder than it needs to be." My heart was pounding so loud it drowned out every other sound. "So that's it," I said. "After everything I've built. After every hour, every client, every damn job, you hand it all to him because he knocked up my fiancée?" My father didn't speak. Just looked down, ashamed but not enough to take it back. That's when I realized the truth. It was never about effort. Never about merit. It was always about Ryan. No matter what I did, I would never be enough. Not in his eyes. Not in his family. Something in me broke right then, not out of rage, not even heartbreak, but clarity. Cold, sharp, irreversible clarity. I turned toward the door. "You want Ryan to run this place?" I said. "Fine. Let him. But don't come calling when it burns to the ground." I didn't pack a box. Didn't clean out my desk. I didn't say goodbye. I just walked out of that house and never looked back. There was nothing left for me there, no business, no family, no reason to pretend any of it mattered anymore. But I didn't just walk away empty-handed. I walked away with something far more powerful than they realized: my name, my reputation, and the trust I'd earned from the people who actually kept that business running. And I knew exactly what to do with it. While my father thought he was handing over a thriving company to his golden boy, I knew the truth: it wasn't a business built by Ryan's charm or Rachel's spreadsheets. It was built by my sweat, my grit, and my client relationships. And if they thought I was going to fade into the background while they played happy family, they underestimated the wrong man. I gave myself 3 days to collect myself, breathe, and quietly draw my battle lines. I didn't scream. I didn't rant on social media or torch anything on my way out. I took my pain and shaped it into a plan. A clean, quiet, surgical plan. I started making calls. One by one, I reached out to every major client I'd personally worked with over the years: commercial contractors, developers, private clients who trusted my name more than the company logo. I didn't slander anyone. I didn't beg. I just told them the truth, told them I was no longer affiliated with the business, and that I'd be stepping away indefinitely. Most of them didn't even let me finish before asking where I was going next. Some were furious. Some confused. A few were downright disgusted when I carefully mentioned there had been some internal restructuring. One guy flat out said, "If Ryan's in charge now, I'm out." I didn't even have to ask. They followed me willingly. Not because I asked them to, but because they didn't trust anyone else to do the job right. Loyalty isn't something you can fake with a smile and a fancy logo. It's earned through late nights, honest work, and showing up when it counts, and I had earned mine. Some clients asked if I was starting my own company. Others wanted to offer me partnerships on the spot. I told them I needed a little time, but I promised I'd circle back. Behind the scenes, I connected them with trustworthy contractors, people I respected, people I knew would take care of them the way I used to. I didn't want to burn bridges. I just wanted to make damn sure those bridges didn't lead back to Ryan. Within 2 weeks, the impact started to show. Jobs were canceled. Contracts pulled. Emails went unanswered. Word got around fast in this town, especially in our trade circle. Ryan was getting hit from every direction, and he didn't even understand why. He thought a company was just paperwork and a building with a name on it. He had no idea that what he'd inherited was an empty shell the moment I walked away. And something inside me started to shift. The sadness didn't vanish, but it hardened into something sharper. A different kind of strength. For the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to prove anything. I wasn't chasing approval or begging for recognition. I was moving in silence, in control, no longer a pawn in anyone's family drama. I wasn't just the betrayed son or the heartbroken fiancé anymore. I was something else now, something clearer. I realized that sometimes the greatest revenge isn't loud or messy. It's precise. It's methodical. It's watching everything they took from you slowly collapse under the weight of their own incompetence. I didn't need to lift a finger. I had already built the engine. All I had to do was take the key with me when I left. It didn't take long for everything to start crumbling. Less than 3 months after I walked away, the business began to rot from the inside out. Clients were pulling out left and right, and the few jobs that Ryan managed to land turned into disasters. I started hearing things, small murmurs from people in the industry, whispers that quickly grew louder. There were reports of botched installations, projects failing inspections, complaints about missed deadlines and sloppy work. The kind of rookie mistakes that should never happen in a company with decades of experience. Electrical panels were installed without grounding, wrong gauge wiring was being used, and junction boxes were left uncovered. That wasn't just carelessness, it was dangerous. Ryan didn't know what he was doing, and worse, he didn't care enough to ask. Instead of hiring qualified electricians, he brought in a couple of his old drinking buddies, guys with zero experience, no licenses, just egos and tool belts. I heard one of them bragging at a bar about learning on the job while working on a commercial build downtown. I remember thinking, someone's going to get hurt. But that wasn't my problem anymore. The real chaos came when one of those jobs failed inspections so badly that the city threatened to revoke their commercial license. That triggered a wave of cancellations. Contractors started blacklisting them, and clients began demanding refunds. And just when it couldn't get worse, the insurance company came knocking. Turns out, Ryan hadn't paid the liability insurance premium. He'd let it lapse either out of stupidity or arrogance, or maybe both. So when one of those half-finished jobs sparked a minor electrical fire, there was no coverage. No safety net. Just legal threats and debt piling higher by the day. I found out later that Ryan had started taking cash payments from clients and never logged them, just pocketed the money. There were rumors he'd taken out personal loans against company assets, probably thinking he could flip it into crypto again. But there was nothing to flip. Just a company bleeding out with no one left to stitch it back together. Rachel didn't stick around to clean up the mess. Whatever twisted version of a love story she thought she had with Ryan crumbled under the weight of reality. No more business to play house with, no more steady income, and certainly no future. She vanished overnight, emptied their joint account, and left nothing but a note. No goodbye, no explanation, just a neat little paragraph about needing to find herself and not wanting to be part of this kind of life. I heard from a mutual friend that she moved out of town, cut ties with most people, and didn't leave a forwarding address. Poetic, really. The woman who helped tear everything down left before the dust even settled. She took what she could and walked away, leaving Ryan to drown in the ruins. And honestly, I didn't feel a thing. No rage, no sorrow, no sense of justice. Just a numb kind of satisfaction, like watching a bad movie finally end. Then came the call from my father. Late at night, just past 11. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to pick up. His voice was different. Not the commanding tone I'd grown up with. He sounded tired. Small. Broken. He started rambling about how things had gotten out of hand, how Ryan was in over his head, and how the business was in trouble. I didn't say much. Just listened. Let him sit in the silence between his words. Then he said it, "We need your help, Charles. Please. I'll sign over everything. You can take full control. Just come back and fix this." I leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. After all the years of being overlooked, disrespected, dismissed, now he was begging me to save what I had already built once before. But I wasn't that man anymore. I didn't owe them anything. And part of me knew this wasn't a rescue mission. It was a lesson. One they needed to learn the hard way. He showed up at my apartment 2 days later, unannounced, standing outside the door like a man who didn't know what to do with his hands. He wasn't wearing his usual pressed button-up or work boots. Just an old flannel jacket I hadn't seen since I was a teenager and a pair of worn-out sneakers that barely held together. He looked smaller somehow, like the years had finally caught up to him all at once. I opened the door and stepped aside without saying a word. He walked in slowly, eyes scanning the room like he didn't recognize the world anymore. I watched him take in the place, modest, clean, quiet. My place. Something I built on my own, without his help, without his name. He sat down on the couch and let out a breath so heavy it sounded like it was carrying decades of regret. For a while, neither of us spoke. Then he reached into a weathered folder he'd brought with him and pulled out a stack of papers. "I'm signing it all over to you," he said. "The business. The accounts. Whatever's left. You've earned it, son. You always did." I was just too damn stubborn to admit it. I looked at the paperwork in his hands, the same way I'd looked at him my whole life, wanting something from him that never came. I waited for the pride in his voice, the apology, the acknowledgement. But even now, it was just obligation. He wasn't offering it because he believed in me. He was offering it because he had nothing left. The house was already on the market. The company bank accounts were almost empty. Suppliers were refusing credit, and lawsuits were stacking up faster than he could respond to them. The legacy he spent his life claiming was gone, and now, when there was nothing left to inherit but a broken reputation, he wanted to pass the torch. Not out of respect, but out of desperation. He tried to soften his tone, said we could rebuild together, make it stronger than ever, start fresh as a real father and son team. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, but because it was pathetic. He still didn't get it. The power had shifted, and he didn't even realize the table had turned. I leaned forward, elbows on my knees, and looked him dead in the eyes. "I don't want it," I said. His face twitched, like he hadn't heard me right. "What?" I said. "I don't want the business. I don't want the headache. I don't want the title, the mess, or the fake redemption arc. You made your choices. You backed Ryan. You handed him everything I worked for. And now you expect me to clean it up like I always have." He opened his mouth to argue, but I didn't let him. "No. Not this time. You chose him. You trusted him. You gave him the keys to everything I built, and he drove it straight into a wall. That's not my burden to carry anymore. His shoulders slumped, his eyes glassy, his voice barely a whisper. What am I supposed to do now? I stood up and walked over to the door. That's not my problem. He paused on his way out, turned to me one last time. You really won't come back? I looked at him, not with anger, but with something colder, clarity. You didn't lose a business, Dad. You lost a son. And you did that long before Ryan ever touched my fiancée. Life got quieter after that. No more constant tension in my chest, no more walking on eggshells, no more trying to prove myself to people who were never going to see me for who I was. I accepted a position with one of the top electrical contracting firms in the city, a place that actually valued my skill, paid what I was worth, and didn't come with years of family baggage attached to every wire and socket. The work was good, challenging, honest. I started managing large-scale commercial projects, training apprentices, consulting on smart energy systems, everything I'd been trying to introduce to the old business for years. And for the first time in a long time, I woke up in the morning without a pit in my stomach. I bought a new truck. Got a nicer apartment across town. Started building a savings account that actually belonged to me. My days were productive, my nights were peaceful. I went hiking again. Cooked for myself. Listened to music instead of arguments. It was like shedding layers of a life I didn't even realize I'd been carrying around. I wasn't just healing, I was evolving. Rachel tried to reach out a few times. A message here, a voicemail there. Most of them sounded desperate. A few were cold, calculated, like she thought if she spoke just the right words, she could get me back under her control. She said the baby was mine. Send a DNA test result through a lawyer. I didn't respond. I forwarded everything to my attorney, let the legal process handle what needed to be handled. I'd already made it clear, if the child is mine, I'll support them, do what's right, be a father in every way I'm supposed to. But I wouldn't have any direct contact with her. That door was closed. Welded shut. She made her choice. Now she has to live with it. People talk about closure like it's a conversation, a clean-cut goodbye, a final handshake that makes everything okay. But that's not how it works. Real closure is something you carve out yourself. It's the moment you stop needing an apology. The day you realize you don't owe anyone forgiveness to move forward. My closure came quietly, in small victories, in simple mornings, in peace I hadn't known since I was a kid. I started seeing someone new, not rushing into anything, just letting things unfold naturally. She's kind, grounded, steady. She doesn't ask about my past unless I want to talk about it. Some nights, I lie awake and wonder how I ever lived in that chaos for so long. How I ever thought it was normal. But I don't dwell. I don't resent. I just keep moving forward. I used to think revenge meant getting even. But now I know the truth, real revenge is living better. Living freer. Living without the weight of people who tried to break you. And that's exactly what I intend to keep doing. If your own family betrayed you, not by accident, but by choice, if they looked you in the eyes and decided your loyalty meant nothing, would you walk away and start fresh, or would you make them regret ever crossing you? Would you take the high road and let karma do its work, or would you burn down everything they built just to show them how it feels? There's no easy answer. But one thing's for sure, when the people who are supposed to protect you become the ones who destroy you, the only real choice left is how you rise after the fall. Sometimes, it takes losing everything to realize your real worth. Not just the money, the house, the business, those things come and go. But your peace, your dignity, your self-respect. That's what matters. I used to think proving myself to my family would finally earn me their love. I used to believe that if I just worked harder, stayed longer, gave more, eventually they'd see me. But I've learned that no amount of sacrifice can fix people who are committed to misunderstanding you. I've learned that walking away doesn't mean giving up, it means refusing to let people keep treating you like less than you are. I've learned that healing doesn't come from revenge, it comes from reclaiming your life and choosing something better. You can't control what others do to you. You can't stop betrayal. But you can choose what happens next. You can choose to stand tall, to build again, to protect your peace like it's sacred. Because it is. And in the end, the strongest kind of power isn't about tearing others down, it's about building a life so solid, so full, so true, that the people who once tried to break you have no place in it anymore. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories of courage, resilience, and transformation. Every time you engage, you help these voices reach someone who might need them most, someone standing at a crossroads, questioning their worth, searching for strength and silence. Your support helps us keep telling stories that matter, stories that remind us all that we're not alone, that our pain has purpose, and that healing is always possible. Together, we can create a world where dignity is not just expected, but fiercely protected. A world where walking away isn't weakness, it's power. And where every broken chapter leads to a stronger ending.